I'm so glad you said that, because as you were talking about that, I thought, you know what? This is a great beer to have in the morning.
Yeah.
This is
Belgian waffles with syrup and salty, meaty bacon on the side.
Pints and Pairings is brought to you in part by Word Driving and The Beer Cave. Learn more about our sponsors at hopheadshead.com/pints-and-pairings. All right. Well, welcome back to Pints and Pairings. I'm Curtis Taylor, also known as Hopheads Head.
And I'm Jason Hendrick with Everybody's Hungry.
Another fabulous Pints and Pairings on location, remote for us.
We're trying a different different component of our existing studio. So we're at Barrelhouse 101 again tonight. But tonight we're on the patio. We want to get in the mix of all the diners. We want to get a little background noise. Two things that we're missing, Curtis. We're missing our big screen TV billboard announcing the show. And we're missing some dark background for our beautiful on-air sign from the Lab 805. It does light up, Kevin, we promise. But normally it would show everyone that we're on air and we're kicking butt on the airwaves of beer and food.
It will. Pretty soon I'm going to be in this really bright spotlight too. So if you're just listening to us on iTunes, whatever it is, go back to hopheadshead.com/pints and pairings. Find the videos for this, whether it's there or if it's on YouTube.
Throw out a little sympathy for Curtis.
Whatever you're doing, and you can see. I mean, we've got some great natural lighting going on here, and of course, it's highlighting Barrelhouse 101. So thanks so much to Barrelhouse 101 for letting us sit out in their patio this evening.
But our feature tonight is a very special broadcast. We've got Kevin Rhodes, owner of Groundswell Brewing Company out of San Diego, and again, we talked about in the intro. Just a nano brewery. We're graced with, I think an embodiment of passion when it comes to beer making. Because Kevin, we've talked about kind of a little bit of your path, opening the brewery and the philosophy, but I can't help, Curtis, but continue to reiterate the fact that how exciting it is to have someone say, I'm going to drive 4 hours for your show with 3 kegs in my back seat because I feel like I want to share my beer and that people need to know about my brand. Tell us a little bit about the beers that are here in the lineup tonight that you brought with you.
Well, tonight I brought our Ginger Saison, which that's one of the 2 beers that I would say we really thought about the food and a specific food that it would go with. We have a lot of friends that are chefs and have Asian food on their menu, and we thought, what better way to kind of get in there, a little bit of acidity in a Saison. Took us a few tries to get the ginger right. We were putting it in before the whirlpool, and then
using fresh ginger. You're looking at candied ginger. Fresh ginger, okay.
And we ended up now we're kind of using it almost like dry hopping, and we found that when we used it too early and it was too warm, it was turning the ginger a little on the bitter side.
Okay.
And so now I think you get a nice little taste of it and a little aroma of it, and it's not overwhelming or bitter. Then we have the Piloncillo Brown. A lot of browns tend to go to that roasty side, and this does. It finishes nice and roasty. But what we did is we added Piloncillo sugar.
What is Piloncillo sugar?
It's a cone of sugar that you find in Mexico. Almost looks like,
I think I've seen it. I guess I didn't realize that. It almost looks like a spit of gyro, almost. I mean, that's
exactly.
Except for it's about yay tall.
You'll see kids in Mexico licking it as a candy. And what it does is it brings some real good molasses and brown sugar notes to the beer. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to have that maltiness, that richness that comes from that molasses and brown sugar followed by the roastiness. Like, again, we talk about the balance that we want to have. Okay. So we want to have that maltiness and moving along, and the mouth is going, wow. And then we finish with our white IPA tonight. Our white IPA is... I dare to say it. I'm probably going to have one of the brewers back home mad at me about this, but it's our style of session IPA. We really don't like dropping that alcohol and losing the malt with the big hops because we lose balance.
And we were talking off air before the show tonight about your personal take on session, borderline disdain for the term session and a session IPA. Give us a little bit about your philosophy on IPAs and session IPAs specifically.
Well, it moves the beer to kind of one-dimensional. It moves it to hoppy and bitter with a very dry and light start. and then you move into that bitter. Where we kept this at 6.1% and 45 IBU, so that there's still that maltiness that balances out the bitterness, and so that sweet and that sweet and bitter go together. I'm this way about sours too. I'm a fan of sours that have fruit and have a little bit of that sweet up front, and then moving into the sour. And it can be big and sour and powerful, but I like to have the balance. I don't like just straight sour.
Right.
Okay.
So it comes from that culinary side. We just want more going on. We want more things happening.
Yeah, you don't want, thinking about a culinary direction and looking at a plate, you don't want all your items on the plate to be one color. You don't want them all to be rich and fatty. You want things to either cleanse and change or complement. And, Curtis, we always talk about resonating tones and contradictory tones and notes. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Kevin, is
Yes.
you want to get across that spectrum.
Yes, we just have to figure out how we're going to get texture in the beer.
Sure. Just the sidebars real
crunchy.
quick. You mentioned texture in the beer, and I just read an article, Curtis, we talked about it last week. One of the terms that people are starting to gravitate away from or think we should stop using so much is mouthfeel. The article said move more towards texture. But as Curtis, you said, there is a certain value in the word mouthfeel or the phrase mouthfeel about the coating that it leaves and the residual sugar and whatnot. So we'll see if mouthfeel holds up in any one of these beers as we move forward.
Well, I almost feel I almost feel that mouthfeel. Excuse me, but umami is so much more of a mouthfeel than say a flavor to me, and so
I'd agree.
and so you can't call that a texture. That's so I understand, because I think it's the same way that craft in the same article was saying stop using the word craft.
And
so
I think you can appreciate, Kevin, from, again, looking at both angles, beverage, the beer, and the food. For me, texture is usually a physical thing that I can move around in my mouth. Although, liquid, the beer is something I can move around in my mouth, but it's got to have a firm or physical aspect,
right,
solid.
There's no crunchy.
It's got a solid.
No,
Whereas mouthfeel can be that coating, that viscosity and whatnot. So we'll see. I want to start tasting. Curtis, you've already jumped in.
because I can't.
I would like to say that I do believe this is one of the things in beer that we're not doing enough of. Is there's two things that happen in the mouth, and in the wine world they're getting this. In the beer world we're kind of close, but not quite. You have taste, sweet, sour, salty, bitter, possibly umami,
Right.
and then you have things that are textural or feel, acid, tannin, alcohol. All those things are different. So you really do need to be able to divide your mouth in two different sectors and say, this is a taste, this is a textural or a feel or something.
I love that, because and that leads to a whole nother series of shows that I don't even I'm so excited to hear that, but
We're gonna have to hold you on retainer for a remote.
I've got to hold
like
back
it
on
here.
that
It's
because
nice.
I love that concept of there's these two things, and the interplay on how everything works out is in just bringing you back to that whole experience, I guess, a fuller experience.
Now, I just took my big swig, 2 swigs actually, of the saison. Going back to what you're saying, Kevin, with the fresh ginger and that subtlety where it's reflecting the ginger without overpowering the palate, it comes through for me. There's it lends to a sushi realm for me. Like, taking the finishing breath really speaks to that fresh bite of pickled ginger on a sushi plate after getting a little dab of soy and maybe like a grilled eel with a sweet sauce, right? There's something in there, like you're saying, the malt backbone holds up. I think this is a perfect marrying of the malt and the ginger for me.
You get some acidity there too, which probably leads that pickled ginger. Like, when you have it, that pickled ginger, it's in vinegar, so you do have that acidity as well as the taste of the ginger. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, and this is a big beer too. It's 6.9%, so there's no slouching about this, and so it's not surprising. Looking at, I was kind of surprised by the malt sweetness to begin with, but then looking at the ABV, it's there. And I think of iconic versions like say DuPont, where it's more bready and spicy, but very light, and so this one is it takes that spicy yeast character, kind of melds it with the ginger, but then true to your philosophy of just balancing the balancing the equation, and so
Yes.
you need to bring that malt bill up in order to to make this so that it's not a one-sided. And I could see the ginger getting carried away with this if it weren't for that malt.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a big change from your traditional beer you would have in a sushi restaurant like a Sapporo. I mean,
Yeah,
it's really changes that whole
And for me, a lot of
experience.
those beers are really just cleansers. They're just a reset for the palate in the next round of roll or sushi. I could see this with a gamier bird style, though, like a duck, something rich and fatty with that little bit of dark gaminess that really would lend to, like you're saying, that mix of spice and ginger. But then there's an underlying sweetness that you should be getting out of the dark meat of that game bird.
Yeah.
Now you want me. Now you got me wanting to try that.
Well,
I haven't had that yet. We have. I have a colleague at the Art Institute where I teach that is going to start doing maybe 3 different types of ramen on Friday nights at the brewery, and we're going to pair beers with ramen.
Oh, that'd be fun.
So the thing I was going to say right before that was fried noodles. And now I know ramen's not fried noodles, but it's coming from that same, some sesame stir-fried noodles, spicing peppers. I'm trying to think of what else is in there. Just when you're talking about the duck, just these little pieces of meat that are thrown in, that would be the complementary to the malt backbone.
And the sweetness that's there really, I think, speaks to some of that unctuous aspect of like the fatty component. You get a great crispy duck with some juicy fat underneath, and it leaves that coating. I think it's really going to be resonating. So you want to be careful on, what kind of sauce you're using and what kind of glaze. You don't want to go too sweet and too smoky, but I think they would go very well together. It'd be a nice resonating pairing.
Well, it goes to something that a lot of people in beer also should take a little more time, I think, to think about is the weight of the food and the weight of the beer, or the body of the beer. These things should be in harmony. So when you have something like you're talking about, the crispy duck that's big and fatty, a fuller kind of feel in the mouth, you need a beer that's bigger and fuller. So Sapporo's just not doing it. It's
Right.
going to be too light, and it's going to be almost like drinking a glass of water.
I agree. I'm wondering if we should just take a break with the saison, come back. We'll hit the brown since we've had such a really great conversation about the saison. I don't want that to get lost in other beers coming down the road.
I'm cool with that because I know down the road, Kevin, you may be around for a little while tonight because I also want to, I want to get through these other beers, but I want to talk about also the your water initiative project with Groundswell and the future of the brewery. So we got a lot coming forward. You want to stay tuned for more with Kevin Rhodes and Groundswell Brewing Company because I'm having a great time, and if I'm having fun, I imagine somebody out there else is going to have fun as well.
I'm having fun.
All right.
I'm
Well,
with
let's call it quits there, and I'll remind everyone to eat, drink, and be happy.
We'll see you at the next pour.
Cheers. Pints and Pairings is brought to you in part by The Beer Cave, located at 231 Village Commons Boulevard in Camarillo, California.
If you prefer a cocktail or some vino, this neighborhood market also has a great selection of premium spirits and wine, along with an attached deli for a quick sandwich to go.
When you stop in, be sure to mention that you heard about them right here on the Pints and Pairings Show, and maybe grab a sandwich for me on your way out.